Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 3 4 key game picks. Before we talk about Week number 3, a lot of things went on in Week number 2, and obviously one of the big stories that came out of Week number 2 was the gruesome injury of Browns running back Nick Chubb. Oh, it was very, very devastating. Anybody who watched the Monday night game between the Browns and the Steelers know what I'm talking about. Nick Chubb really suffered a gruesome injury that more than likely is going to cost him the entire regular season. And who knows beyond what his football career is going to be like after this, because this was a really gruesome injury he had. I mean, just find the replays on YouTube or whatever, and it's just, you got to feel for Nick Chubb. One of the hardest working football players in the league. He's not a big time star or anything like that. He's more blue collar, hard nosed and everything, but just the gruesome injury he had, it was just really, really devastating. Obviously, the big injury of week number 2. But other than that, the things that went on in week number 2, obviously the teams that are 0-2. One you would think that shouldn't be a surprise, but one is actually a big surprise by now. I'm talking about two particular football teams. One is the Cincinnati Bengals, and the other is the Chargers. Now, the Bengals, despite them being 0-2 last year, they started out 0-2, but then they went on to go to the AFC Championship game after finally getting together and finally getting things right. This might be a little bit different now, because during the game against the Ravens for Joe Burrow, he aggravated his calf again. And these type of injuries are affecting the way quarterbacks throw the ball and how they're able to move out of the pocket. So this really does bring some huge question marks. Do I think the Bengals are in trouble? I think they are. This is not like last season where they just had some minor things. They had some things they had to clean up, and they were able to manage, and they were able to win the division and go all the way in the postseason, all the way to the conference championship game. But this time around, the injury to Joe Burrow is probably a lot more than anybody anticipated. And if you're a Bengals fan, this is really troubling, going to the fact that your star quarterback and the way the Bengals have played the last few seasons, this should be the year they should be making that Super Bowl run. But that may have been over with thanks to Joe Burrow's injury. I think it's just trouble now for the Bengals. And going over the Chargers, I really don't want to get into this that much, given the fact that this team has talent and why they're 0-2. Their inability to finish football games. Look, anybody who knows me on a personal level, especially people that are close to me, obviously because they're Raider fans and they always been giving me flack and everything and all that, and I got made fun of again, which that's a whole nother story. Their inability to finish football games is just so disgusting. And all of this definitely lies on Coach Brandon Staley. I personally think now, if he doesn't turn things around fast, they're 0-2, and their schedule's still pretty brutal in the first few weeks of the season. It's not looking good. This Charger team, who knows when they're going to get their first win of the season if they don't get their act together. Justin Herbert is a good quarterback, and his inability to finish football games, that's just one of the problems. And then the fact that their defense of all things, should be playing much better than what they're playing right now. They're giving up too many big plays. And it's really, really hard to see this, given so much talent, supposedly this team's supposed to be talented, but yet they're playing like a subpar 500 team, which really they haven't even won a football game yet this season. It's hard to say right now when you look at some surprises. Some teams that are 0-2, it's not surprising at all. But obviously, you got to look at the Dallas Cowboys, possibly maybe at least for the first part of the season right now. They're looking like the best team in the NFL. Their ability to run the ball, obviously, mostly it's the running game that has been the most effective. Obviously, Dak Prescott hasn't really, in terms of passing and all that, pretty much average. But it's really the same time their defense is really making a huge difference here. They have done a fantastic job of holding opponents to either 0 points, or in the case of the Jets, they held them to under 30 points. So no question, this could be the team. I never thought I'd see the Cowboys finally showing some dominance. Anyways, now, there's a lot of things that went on in week number 2. Obviously, the Giants come back over the Cardinals. I wish I had more time to get into that, but we need to get to week 3. All right, let's begin with key game number 1, and this is kind of a game I really, really am not looking forward to, even though This is really a key game for both these two teams, and I'm talking about the Chargers versus the Vikings. Both teams 0-2, knowing full well they should at least have at least one victory in their column, but they don't. Herbert was 27 of 41, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that heartbreaking loss to the Titans last week. Kirk Cousins nearly brought the Vikings back over the Eagles, even though despite the Eagles, they were down to the Eagles earlier in the first half of that game last week. Cousins was 31 of 44, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. The lines are moving a little bit from you pick them to -1 for one or the other. The current odds I have right now is the Chargers are a 1-point favorite in this game. To be honest, they shouldn't even be favored in this game, given the fact that their defense has given up way too many big plays and yardage and all. And you would think that a team as good a talent as the Chargers, a lot of it's falling on Stanley if he doesn't get this team right. I would say the same thing about the Vikings too. Kirk Cousins, despite putting up some decent numbers in his last 2 games, why is Minnesota winless? This is big because one of these two teams may salvage a bit of their season, whoever wins this game, and obviously whoever loses this game, their season may be over. I'm going to make this pick. I'm going to make this pick very short and very bittersweet because I'm going to be honest here. I'm picking the Minnesota Vikings in this one here because the Chargers defense, inability to stop big plays, and knowing the way that Justin Jefferson of the Vikings, he can make spectacular plays. And I think the Chargers defense is going to get burned in this game. They have given up so many big plays, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Minnesota Vikings do the same thing to the Chargers. It's going to be a nightmare for this Charger defense if they can't stop Jefferson and be able to stop the run too. I think this game might go back and forth. I think it's going to be another close game, but the Chargers losing in very close games, I hate to say it. Unless if they're inability to finally finish the job, I'm picking the Vikings here. I have to see it from the Chargers in order for them to finally get back on track. I'm just not going to see it in this game. I hate to say it. As a Chargers fan, this pains me to say it. Minnesota over the Chargers in this one here. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, if they come up with big plays from Cousins to Jefferson and all, Chargers defense is going to get torched in this game. Vikings over the Chargers. Key game number 2. The Atlanta Falcons versus the Detroit Lions. This is quite an interesting matchup here for the Falcons, despite the fact that they're 2-0 under a rookie, Desmond Ridder, 19 of 32, 237 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interceptions, in a big comeback win against the Packers last week. Now, Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions last week played very well, but Seattle just killed them last week in their comeback win in overtime, and it went on to beat them in overtime. Goff 28 of 35, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Question marks are starting to wonder now with the Lions now, even though it's only the 3rd game of the season here. Did the Lions kind of get full of themselves after the win over the Chiefs, and they forgot to concentrate a little bit more in this game against the Falcons? And I mean, against the Seahawks last week? Pardon me? I don't know. Can Dan Campbell get this football team to focus here? I like Dan Campbell. He's a very good coach. But unless if he gets this football team back on track and all that, the way the Falcons' running game just dominated the Packers last week, not everything fell on Desmond Ridder's hands here. Their running game was spectacular last week. That helped to really just tired out the Packer defense right here. And Detroit did have a kind of a hard time last week stopping the run. I would say this game is a toss-up. The Lions are favored by 3 in this one here. That number is probably going to go to 2.5 to probably 2 points, maybe even 1.5. I mean, there has to be some sort of turnaround for the Lions here. I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions because I think this game is going to go back and forth. I can see it right now. A lot of it's going to be because of the Falcons' running game, and the Detroit Lions defense is going to have to find a way to stop the run. This is definitely going to be a very close football game here. I think the Lions will figure it out here. It's going to the Lions defense I know is a bit better than the Packers defense. And I think to me that the Lions defense will find a way to control that running game of Atlanta and force Desmond Ridder to start throwing the ball. It's going to be a close game. I'm going to pick the Lions in this one here at -3. Should be a good one here in Detroit. And this time, I think the Lions will get a victory in this one here. I think, to me, Dan Campbell will get that team much more focused in this one here. I'm going to pick the Lions over the Falcons. It is going to be close. It's a 50-50 game in this one here. It's going to go either way in this game, but I'm going to pick the Lions over the Falcons. Key game number 3, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are a slight favorite in this one here at -1.5. And I would say that number probably will go to 1. Kenny Pickett was 15 of 30, 222 yards, 1 touchdown, and he was picked off one time last week against the Browns. Jimmy G played terribly last week in that loss to the Bills, 16 of 24, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. This game is a toss-up here. Jimmy Garoppolo and his ability to get that offense going last week against the Bills was it was a lot hard. It took them a while to finally get some points on the board. But the way I'm looking at it right now for this Raider team right now, the Steelers defense is no joke. They have a pretty good defense. Their offense is a question mark. And you can't underestimate Watt and the way he's got that Steeler defense going. He's really the heart and soul of that defense now. If the Steelers defense dominates like they did against the Browns, even though yet the Steelers kind of did have a hard time stopping the run. But I think, to me, Watt his ability to make some good plays here. I think if they don't find a way to control Watt, the Raiders, I see the Steelers winning this game. And I'm picking the Steelers here. It's going to be a close game. It's probably going to be low scoring, to be quite honest with you, because Kenny Pickett still has to really prove that he can finally improve as a quarterback here. It's going to be a low scoring game. But I trust Pittsburgh's defense a lot more than I trust the Raiders' defense. And that is why I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers in an upset in this one here. I like the Steelers in this one here. I think Watt's ability to make plays, I think, is going to really cause Jimmy G some problems in this one here. I like the Steelers in this one here at +1.5, and that's my pick. The Steelers over the Raiders. And finally, key game number 4, it is the LA Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Matt Stafford last week, 34-55, 307 yards, 1 touchdown, was intercepted twice. Joe Burrow was 27 of 41, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The Bengals are a slight favorite in this one at -2.5. I would say that number is probably going to go to 2, maybe 1.5. Cincinnati's offensive line is really having trouble protecting Burrow. And knowing Aaron Donald and the way that defense plays, you got to wonder, how many times he's going to get to Burrow in this game. The Rams are playing better than anticipated, given the fact that they really gave the 49ers quite a scare last week, but the Niners dominated in the end. This one here for Cincinnati's in a must-win game here to salvage their season. They do not want to go down 0-3 and hope and pray that some things happen in their division, they could climb their way back up. It's really tough to say because the Rams defense, like the Chargers, they also are giving up so many big plays. And this is where coming the fact that the Bengals really need to start making some big plays here and really cause the defense problems here. This game is another toss-up here because the Rams are playing better than expected. Their offense is clicking. Obviously, they still don't have Cooper Kupp. I don't know when he's going to come back, but their rookie Nunca has really done a fantastic job at keeping the Rams offense going here. But it's going to be tough. If the Bengals offense can get it going here, I think I'm going to actually pick the Bengals in this one here. I know you're probably saying I'm giving a little bit more positivity to the Rams. I just think the Rams giving up big plays, I think is going to be a problem. They kind of have the same problem the Chargers have in giving up big plays. And I think if the Bengals can really get that offense going in this one here, even though Burrow's calf is still an issue, I like the Bengals in a very extremely close game here. Though I think this is a game they finally get back on track. I think they'll get their first win of the season in this one here. I'm going to pick the Bengals. It's going to be a close game. It's a 50-50 pick here. It's hard to say who wins this one here. But I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one here. I think they'll finally get a win over the Rams. They'll finally get a victory and beat the Rams in this one here. They'll get their first win of the season. I'm going to pick the Bengals over the Rams. All right, everybody, check the description below for all my picks for week number 3. I'll see you all next week when I make my picks for week number 4. Take care and enjoy your football weekend.